In this lesson, I just want to show you how to adjust the exposure of your photo and the adjustment option that I would recommend first. So, as I mentioned, I like using these adjustment layers. You have a few different options up here for exposure. All these four in this sort of category are for exposure. Down below, you have more color options, and then down below, those are just more sort of some creative options. Brightness and contrast and exposure are two that I would really kind of stay away with. They're pretty basic and they don't leave you much room for editing specific parts of your image. I much would rather use levels or curves. I like using levels a lot because I find it just a little bit more natural as a photographer to use this. When you have the levels property panel open, you see what's called a histogram. A histogram is a visual representation of the dark parts and the bright parts of your image. On the left-hand side, you have your darks. On the right-hand side, you have your brights. So you can see that there's a lot in this photo that are in this dark part of the histogram. And there's these peaks over here on the right-hand side. You can click auto and it will automatically try to balance out your image, but when I did it for this photo, it doesn't really look that great. You can also take these little points at the bottom of this histogram and move them right to left. So moving this left one to the right will make the darks darker actually, because it's in essence moving all of the histogram, the darks on this histogram more to the left, because this is kind of the edge. You can imagine it as the edge of your histogram that we're moving to the right. And same with this right point. This is your white point. And so if we move this to the left, it's going to make everything brighter. This middle one is really where a lot of magic can happen, and the combination of these, dragging it to the left will make things brighter, dragging to the right will make things darker. So depending on where you want to go, I'm going to actually drag this to the left so that the darks get a little bit brighter. But then I'm also going to drag this left one to the right to bring back some of that contrast. And it's all kind of a balance. So I'm taking the mids again, moving a little bit to the right again, which brings back down some of the highlights as well. And you can actually layer these on top of each other too. For example, say we liked what the levels did here, we can then add a curves adjustment. So curves is another one that I like, and we've seen this before. It's this graph where you click on a point and you can actually bring down or up the exposure of a specific part of your image. For example, if I just want to bring down some of the highlights, I can make a point right here on this line and then bring down my highlights just a little bit, just like so, and everything else stays basically how it was, but then we're bringing down our highlights so we get a little bit more information back in the parts of the image in the background that are a little bit blown out, right? Blown out meaning a little overexposed. So those are the tools that I would recommend, or the set effects that I would recommend for adjusting exposure. We'll dive into another tool called Dodge and Burn later on that allows you to adjust just specific parts of your image. But for now, I would just stick to these tools for that kind of stuff. See you in the next lesson.